There is a very specific cultural script we've all been handed when it comes to turning 100 years old.
Oh, yeah. The rocking chair, the lap blanket.
Exactly. You picture a quiet room. The whole focus of a centenarian's day is supposed to be, well, retrospective,
Right. It's all about reflecting on a long life in the past tense.
Yeah, surrounded by great-grandchildren and essentially just winding down the clock.
It's treated as an endpoint, like a finish line you finally get to cross, and the reward for crossing it is total rest.
Right.
And we find that narrative comforting, I think, because it fits a really predictable biological trajectory. Youth is for building, middle age is for managing, and old age is for resting.
But then you step into the world of Taiwan's heavy industry and high technology sectors, and that entire predictable trajectory it's thrown completely out the window.
Oh, totally.
We are looking at a life that defies every single biological and professional stereotype imaginable. I want you to imagine someone who just turned 100 years old today. Yeah. Today, August 1st, 2026.
A literal century.
A century. Now imagine this same centenarian isn't anywhere near a rocking chair. Instead, he's currently heading to work. He's leading a massive, globally significant corporate empire, and he's using modern AI tools to argue with hospital directors about his own medical diagnostics.
It genuinely sounds like a character from a near-future science fiction novel, right? Like some cybernetic CEO who refuses to age out of the system.
Yes, but this is a very real person navigating the modern world with just an astonishing level of acuity.
It's incredible.
He is entirely real. And today we have a phenomenal piece of source material that breaks down exactly how he operates. We're doing a deep dive into this incredibly detailed profile from Wealth magazine that examines the life, the mind, and the intense daily architecture of Lin Shuhong.
Lin Shuhong.
He's the co-founder and president of Changchun Group. And if you aren't familiar with Changchun, you really need to understand that this isn't just some successful local business.
No, not at all.
This is a foundational pillar of Taiwan's entire industrial and technological landscape.
To put it in perspective, if you interact with modern technology today, like if you drive an electric vehicle or use a device with an advanced microchip, you are indirectly relying on the chemical empire that he helped build from the ground up.
Which makes his story a blueprint for something we all struggle with, right? Staying relevant.
Absolutely.
Whether you're listening right now and you're trying to optimize your morning routine, or maybe you're trying to pivot your career into a completely new industry and feeling, overwhelmed by the learning curve.
The learning curve can be brutal.
Right. Or maybe you just want to figure out how to keep your brain sharp as the years go by. His deeply analytical approach to his own life offers an absolute masterclass.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to figure out how someone earns the title, the Edison of the petrochemical industry, and actually maintains total relevance over an entire century of life.
Well, to even begin to understand why he wakes up at the time he does, or, why he eats what he eats, we really have to grasp the sheer scale of the machine he built.
The corporate empire.
Right. You cannot separate his personal daily discipline from his macro corporate strategy. They're twin reflections of the exact same mind.
So let's start with that empire. The profile notes that he co-founded Changchun Group over 70 years ago, building what's described as Taiwan's most complete vertically integrated petrochemical empire.
70 years. Just think about that timeline.
It's wild. But the crucial detail here is that he didn't just build a successful traditional chemical company in the 1950s and then, put it on cruise control.
Which is what most founders do.
Exactly. Usually, a founder who started a company in the mid-20th century becomes the institutional bottleneck. They trap the company in amber. They say, hey, we make traditional plastics. This is how we made our millions, and this is what we'll always do.
Yeah, they suffer from legacy lock-in. The heavy infrastructure they built to succeed in the 20th century becomes the very thing preventing them from adapting to the 21st.
Right.
Because traditional petrochemicals, processing crude oil and naphtha into basic plastics and resins, it's a highly lucrative but very established, very slow-moving industry.
But Lin didn't get locked in. He successfully pivoted this massive legacy company into highly advanced, incredibly high-value fields.
Which is no small feat.
No. The article highlights that Changchun Group moved into electronic chemicals, high-performance resins, and actually became a crucial supplier for the global semiconductor and electric vehicle supply chains.
Yeah.
To me, this pivot just feels impossible. I mean, this isn't like a software company updating an app with a few new lines of code. This is like taking a massive soot-stained mundane 20th century steel mill and somehow, while it's still running, by the way, upgrading it to manufacture microscopic components for spaceships.
That analogy hits the nail on the head because it really captures the shift in tolerances.
What do you mean by tolerances?
Well, let's break down what that pivot actually requires on a molecular level. In traditional petrochemicals, you're dealing in bulk. You measure success in massive tonnages of commodity chemicals.
Right, big vats of stuff.
Exactly. But when you pivot to electronic chemicals for the semiconductor industry, supplying companies like TSMC, which makes the world's most advanced microchips, the rules of physics completely change.
Because a microchip is built on a microscopic scale? I mean, a speck of dust is like a boulder on a silicon wafer.
Not just dust, though. We are talking about chemical purity measured in parts per trillion.
Wow, parts per trillion.
Yeah. If the hydrogen peroxide or the photoresist that are used to etch a microscopic circuit onto a silicon wafer have even a microscopic trace of metal contamination, the entire batch of chips is ruined. Millions of dollars lost.
Unbelievable.
So to take a company with a culture of manufacturing bulk industrial plastics and engineer a culture capable of producing ultra-pure semiconductor-grade chemicals, it requires a staggering overhaul of equipment, protocol, and, frankly, human psychology.
And the electric vehicle pivot is just as intense. The source material notes they supply crucial materials for EV supply chains. I know they're a massive producer of the ultra-thin copper foil used in lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
So again, going from vats of industrial resin to engineering microscopic layers of copper foil for Tesla batteries, how does a guy whose formal education was at the Taipei Industrial School's chemical engineering department back in the mid-1900s manage to foresee and execute this?
What's fascinating here is that it comes back to the nickname his peers gave him, the Edison of the petrochemical industry.
Eat Edison.
Right. We often reduce Thomas Edison to just the invention of the light bulb, but Edison's actual genius was relentless, methodical, industrialized experimentation.
He tested thousands of things.
Exactly. He didn't just tinker. He built a system for testing thousands of filaments. He helped engineer the entire electrical grid required to make the bulb useful, and Lin operates with that exact same systemic mindset.
Okay, so it's a systems approach.
Yeah. He holds honorary doctorates from National Taipei University of Technology and National Tsinghua University, but his foundation is practical, hands-on chemical engineering. He views the entire global economy as a chemical equation that is constantly rebalancing.
So when the economy shifts towards semiconductors, he doesn't see it as a threat to his plastics business.
No, not at all.
He just sees a new chemical equation to balance.
And this is where vertical integration becomes his superpower.
Vertical integration,
Yeah.
meaning they own every step.
Right. Vertical integration means you own your entire supply chain from the raw materials to the processing plants to the final product delivery. Now, in most companies, vertical integration creates a sluggish bureaucracy.
Too much red tape.
Right. But for a mind like his, it means you control all the variables. If you control all the variables, you can iterate and experiment with incredible speed. But it requires a leader who possesses a highly specific dual-track cognitive capacity.
You have to understand the macro and the micro simultaneously.
Exactly. You have to be deeply focused on the gritty foundational basics, the raw chemical inputs, the heavy machinery, the logistics. But at the same time, you have to maintain a razor-sharp understanding of the bleeding edge of global technology. You have to know what a chemical plant down in Kaohsiung is capable of producing today and what a semiconductor fab up in Hinsenchu is going to need 5 years from now.
Running a company that touches both TSMC and the global EV market requires a brain that doesn't just manage daily tasks, right? It's constantly processing new, highly complex paradigms.
Exactly.
You can't run a hyper-modern tech supply chain if your brain is stuck in a 1950s managerial mindset.
No way.
So how do you feed and maintain a brain like that for a century? And that leads us straight into the architecture of his day. And honestly, the core facts here are just staggering.
They really are.
At 99 years old, heading into his 100th year, he still goes to the office every single day.
And we should clarify, this is not a ceremonial role. He isn't just showing up once a quarter to cut a ribbon.
Right.
He is engaged in the daily operational reality of the business.
And his day starts at 5:00 a.m., but it's what he does at 5 a.m. that completely blew my mind. He does gymnastics.
Gymnastics at 5:00 a.m.
Yes. But he isn't doing this in some quiet, meditative Zen state. He's doing gymnastics while simultaneously consuming global media. The profile specifically notes he is taking in CNN, NHK, and local Taiwan news.
It's unbelievable.
He is processing English, Japanese, and Mandarin news streams while physically exercising before the sun has even come up.
It is a remarkable display of neuroplasticity and cognitive reserve.
Yeah.
I mean, he is engaging in a trilingual, multinational data intake. He's forcing his brain to rapidly switch context between Western geopolitical news on CNN, Asian economic developments on NHK, and domestic policy in Taiwan.
It's a complete physical and geopolitical calibration of the system.
That's a great way to put it.
Then he follows that up with exercise in the park before heading to the office. But here is the detail that really caught my eye. The article points out that he uses the exact same desk he has used for half a century.
Half a century.
And he carries the same old, battered briefcase. The publisher of Lock magazine observed him about 4 years ago, noting his pre-work habits used to include playing badminton and swimming every day. But his lunch...
Yeah.
His lunch is famously Spartan.
Oh, the steamed bun.
Yes, a single steamed bun, a mantou, and fresh milk. I look at this contrast, a man who sits atop a multi-billion-dollar empire, who could easily afford a private chef to prepare a 5-course gourmet meal in a bespoke executive dining room,
Right.
And he's eating a plain steamed bun at a 50-year-old desk.
Yet that contrast is the key to his longevity. It is a highly advanced, intuitive application of reducing decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue.
Right. Every human being wakes up with a finite amount of cognitive energy. Think of it like a daily allowance of mental bandwidth.
Like having a set amount of RAM in a computer?
A perfect analogy. Every choice you make, no matter how trivial, burns a tiny fraction of that RAM. Deciding what suit to wear, agonizing over a lunch menu, debating whether to redesign your office. All of these micro decisions drain the battery. And when you are directing a petrochemical empire's pivot into the high-stakes semiconductor supply chain, the cost of a bad decision is measured in billions of dollars and thousands of jobs.
You simply cannot afford to waste your mental RAM on deciding what to eat.
Exactly.
It reminds me of the Steve Jobs turtleneck strategy, where he wore the same outfit every day so he wouldn't have to think about it. But Lin has applied this to his entire physical environment and his nutrition.
He has automated the mundane. By standardizing his meal, a simple, easily digestible carbohydrate and protein source like a steamed bun and milk, and standardizing his physical workspace with the same desk for 50 years, he completely eliminates trivial decision-making.
Wow.
He isn't eating the bun because he's frugal. He's eating it because it requires zero cognitive processing. He's engineered an environment that reserves 100% of his mental bandwidth for high-level, complex problem-solving.
And he also engineers physical movement directly into his corporate day. The article notes that during gaps in his schedule, he doesn't sit back in a plush leather chair.
Right, he doesn't just rest.
No, he actively walks outside the meeting rooms, or he uses his time to walk up and down the stairs of the corporate headquarters. He doesn't separate his life into work time and gym time.
In modern corporate culture, we often trap ourselves in sedentary boxes. We sit in a car, we sit at a desk, we sit in the meeting, and then we wonder why our brains feel completely foggy by 3:00 p.m.
Yeah, the afternoon slump.
But for him, physical movement is seamlessly intertwined with his professional environment.
Because the body and the brain aren't separate systems. I read recently that the calf muscles act almost like a secondary heart, pumping blood back up to the brain when you walk.
That is precisely the mechanism. That stair climbing isn't just about maintaining cardiovascular fitness, it's about maintaining cerebral perfusion.
Cerebral perfusion, getting blood to the brain.
Right. By walking the stairs between meetings, he is literally forcing oxygenated blood into his prefrontal cortex, which keeps his executive function optimized during long, grueling days of complex negotiations.
This entirely reframes how I view his discipline. The 5 a.m. wake up, the gymnastics, the stairs, the park. It's not just blind, stubborn adherence to a routine he started in his 20s.
No, not at all.
He isn't just a creature of habit. It sounds like a highly calculated scientific response to the biological realities of aging. He is managing his body like a chemical plant.
He is analyzing his own physiology with the exact same rigor, objectivity, and data-driven focus that he applies to a production line in one of his factories.
Which brings us to my absolute favorite part of this profile,
Right.
How this engineer approaches biology and modern AI biohacking.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
This is where the Edison mindset is turned completely inward. The source material outlines his health philosophy, and it is incredibly blunt and statistical. He notes that at his age, approaching 100, the statistics are grim. Like, 1/3 of people his age are bedridden, and another third require walking aids.
He looks at the actuarial tables and just accepts the mathematical reality of his demographic.
Right, and he attributes his own ability to walk completely independently to the habits he built in his youth. But he doesn't let ego drive his current habits.
That's a huge point.
He intentionally modified his daily step count. He states that young people should probably aim for 10,000 steps a day, which is the standard advice. But he took a step back, looked at the data of his own 99-year-old body, and scientifically adjusted his personal goal down to 5,000 steps to match his current physical capacity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a profound demonstration of what we could call data-driven ego management.
Ego management. You mean like the weekend warrior athlete who blows out his Achilles tendon at age 45 because he still thinks he can sprint like he did in the college finals?
Exactly. Highly successful, driven individuals often struggle immensely with the aging process because their ego demands they perform at the exact same physical and mental level they did at 30.
Yeah, they push too hard.
They stubbornly try to run the marathon, they try to force the 10,000 steps, and they end up causing catastrophic wear and tear on their joints, which leads to the very immobility they were trying to avoid. They let their psychological identity override the biological data.
They refuse to read the telemetry data of their own bodies.
The Len looks at his 99-year-old body and accepts the biological reality. Cartilage degrades. Recovery times lengthen. Sarcopenia muscle loss changes biomechanical efficiency.
Right.
He doesn't throw a tantrum about it. He optimizes for the reality of his current situation. He cuts the goal to 5,000 steps. He isn't stubbornly trying to act 20 years old. He's optimizing for the reality of being a century old.
That's so smart.
That is pure engineering. When the parameters of the machine change, you adjust the input to match the current capacity.
And if adjusting his step count is a masterclass in reading his own telemetry, his use of AI is just next-level biohacking.
It's wild.
The profile reveals that when he feels slightly unwell, he doesn't just passively wait for a doctor to tell him what to do. He uses modern AI tools to look up complex medical data. He actually learns the professional medical jargon, and then he uses that highly technical vocabulary to discuss his condition with his doctors.
He refuses to be a passive recipient of medical care.
He goes so far as to suggest potential underlying causes that the doctors themselves hadn't even considered. It reached a point where one hospital director actually laughed and admitted he was being stumped or tested by this centenarian patient.
That's hilarious.
He is essentially debugging his own body like it's a faulty manufacturing process, looking at inputs, outputs, error codes, and running diagnostics through an AI. But I have to ask you to unpack this because we hear constantly about the dangers of Dr. Google, right?
Oh, sure. Medical professionals hate it.
Yeah, doctors complain endlessly about patients who read one WebMD article and suddenly think they know more than a medical professional. Self-diagnosing online usually just leads to massive anxiety. So why is this centenarian successfully collaborating with and challenging hospital directors rather than just being an annoying hypochondriac?
Well, the difference lies entirely in his foundational training and his mental framework. A hypochondriac uses a search engine to confirm their deepest anxieties. They're looking for a quick answer, usually driven by emotion.
Right.
But a master chemical engineer utilizes an AI as an advanced research tool to understand a complex, interconnected system.
And the human body is basically just a wet chemical plant, right?
Fundamentally, yes. It is an extraordinarily complex chemical processing facility. You have inputs like nutrition and oxygen, catalysts like enzymes and hormones, complex metabolic pathways, and measurable outputs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The article explicitly points to his guiding ethos, which translates to seeking truth from facts and getting to the bottom of things.
So when he uses AI, he isn't typing in, "Why does my knee hurt?" and clicking the first sponsored link on Google.
No. He is most likely querying the AI for peer-reviewed studies. He's cross-referencing his own blood panel data, which an engineer would view as system pressure gauges and flow rates with biochemical pathways.
Wow.
When he speaks to the hospital director, he isn't challenging the doctor's authority out of arrogance. He's bringing a different kind of analytical rigor, a systems engineering rigor, to a biological problem.
That makes perfect sense. A doctor is trained to look for clinical symptoms and match them to a diagnosis. An engineer is trained to look at the entire system architecture to find out why a specific output is failing.
Which is exactly why the hospital director isn't annoyed, but rather amused and stumped. He's likely asking highly technical, systems-level questions about inflammatory markers or metabolic feedback loops that a doctor rarely, if ever, gets from a patient, let alone a 100-year-old patient.
But to use AI tools that effectively to learn medical jargon on the fly and hold your own against a hospital director, your brain has to be incredibly, almost terrifyingly sharp.
Yes, it does.
Physical exercise, the 5,000 steps, that alone doesn't give you that kind of cognitive horsepower. You can have a perfectly healthy cardiovascular system and still lose your intellectual edge.
Absolutely.
Maintaining that level of analytical sharpness requires a massive, ongoing diet of new information.
The physical exercise is merely the infrastructure. It ensures the blood vessels are clear and the oxygen is flowing. But the fuel for that cognitive engine is entirely informational.
Which perfectly bridges to his mental diet. The profile details his reading habits, and they are intense. Even in his 90s, heading toward 100, he maintains a habit of reading extensively.
Okay.
Historically, he has dedicated up to 4 hours a day to reading.
4 hours?
4 hours. That is a part-time job, just consuming information, and he's doing this while running a global corporation.
It speaks to a voracious, almost insatiable appetite for data. But it also speaks to a disciplined prioritization of time. I mean, to find 4 hours a day requires ruthless time management.
And the source material highlights what he actually spends that time reading. It's fascinating. He recently recommended the autobiography of Morris Chang, specifically part 2 of the autobiography.
Morris Chang, the founder of TSMC.
Right, the semiconductor giant we mentioned earlier. The article notes that he specifically admired Chang's time management and his profound ability to observe and discover talent.
The fact that he zeroes in on time management and talent discovery is incredibly revealing about the problems he is still trying to solve at his age.
Yeah. And the second book mentioned is entirely different. It's by the superintendent of Gwandu Hospital, titled Walking with a Cane Over the Bridge to the East. He highly appreciated a specific humorous quote from this book.
Oh, I love this quote.
The quote is, "When you are young, your heart beats fast because of infatuation. When you are old, it beats fast because of arrhythmia."
It's a brilliant, self-deprecating piece of medical humor that perfectly encapsulates the shift from the romanticism of youth to the biological realities of aging.
But before we analyze what these books tell us about his mindset, there is a really quirky editorial detail in the source text that I have to point out. It's a fun little mystery.
Oh, the birth year discrepancy.
Yes. The main text of the article explicitly states that he was born on August 1st, 1926. That is what makes him exactly 100 years old today, in August 2026. But if you scroll down and look at the little profile summary box at the bottom of the article, it lists his birth year as 1928.
Which would make him 98, not 100. It is a classic editorial discrepancy. It's likely a typo by a layout editor who is referencing an older document or a different calendar system.
Yeah, it's just a funny little quirk, but I actually think it serves as a perfect meta example of why critical reading, the very thing he dedicates 4 hours a day to, is so vital. Even in a highly respected financial magazine, data can conflict within the same page.
You have to pay attention. You have to cross-check.
Exactly. But let's look at the substance of his reading list. Why is a 100-year-old billionaire chemical engineer spending hours reading the autobiography of another nonagenarian tech billionaire?
Well, if we synthesize this reading list, it tells us exactly where his mind is focused. Notice what is absent. The profile doesn't highlight him reading technical manuals on chemical synthesis or patent filings for electric vehicle batteries.
Right. He's not reading textbooks.
He likely absorbs that data through his teams. What he is looking for in Morris Chang's book is human engineering.
Human engineering. I really like that framing.
At the highest echelons of global business, whether you are Morris Chang building a semiconductor monopoly or Lin Chu-Hong building a petrochemical empire, the ultimate constraint on your growth is almost never technology.
It's not?
No, because technology can be bought, it can be developed in a lab, or it can be reverse engineered. The only true unbreakable constraints are time and human capital.
Ah, right.
How do you manage the finite 24 hours in a day? And how do you spot the rare generational human talent required to execute your vision?
Because Morris Chang is famous for founding TSMC relatively late in life, right, in his mid-50s, and building it into a behemoth through sheer operational discipline and recognizing brilliant engineers.
Exactly. Lin is reading Morris Chang to understand how another master architect of industry solves the human equation. How does Morris manage his time? How does he identify leaders? He is looking for operational upgrades for his own leadership style, even at 100 years old.
It shows that despite his monumental success, he doesn't believe his own system is perfect.
Never.
And I love that he also appreciates the dark humor in the hospital superintendent's book. The arrhythmia quote shows that despite this intense, hyper-disciplined, almost robotic daily schedule, he hasn't lost his humanity, his wit, or his ability to laugh at the inescapable realities of the human body.
This raises an important question for all of us regarding how and why we consume information.
How so?
Well, how many of us read to genuinely learn from our peers, to challenge our own methodologies, rather than just reading to confirm our existing biases?
That's a great point. We usually just look for validation.
Right. But he reads for 4 hours a day because he operates from a baseline of intellectual humility. He genuinely believes there's always a better system he hasn't figured out yet.
Intellectual humility, that's the core of it. He doesn't think he knows it all. Because if he thought he knew it all, he'd be sitting by a pool all day instead of reading autobiographies and going to the office at dawn.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the final aspect of our deep dive. This constant seeking of knowledge, this absolute refusal to slow down, it ties directly into how outside observers view him. It brings us to his ultimate legacy and his philosophy on labor itself.
The way he is perceived by his peers in the Taiwanese business community is heavily layered with cultural significance.
The article cites an observation by the Wealth magazine publisher, who observed him a few years ago when he was 96. He noted that despite using a cane, he walked onto a stage nimbly to receive an award, and he maintained a very upright, vigorous posture.
He wasn't hunched?
Right. He maintained a powerful physical presence, and the publisher described him using a very specific, evocative phrase, a Taiwanese old ox.
It is a profound metaphor in the context of Taiwan's history.
The profile describes him as working tirelessly every day and genuinely finding joy in the work. The driving force behind his entire century of life is identified as a spirit of lifelong learning and a refusal to stop moving forward.
Yeah.
But this is where I want to challenge the modern cultural narrative, because I think a lot of people listening might have a hard time wrapping their heads around this. Today, the ultimate dream that is constantly sold to us is FIRE, right? Financial independence, retire early.
The desire to escape the labor force as quickly as possible.
Right. The cultural message is grind in your 20s and 30s, make your money by 40, invest it in index funds, and then sit on a beach, travel the world, and never look at a spreadsheet again.
That's the dream for a lot of people.
But here is a billionaire, someone who achieved financial independence probably 60 or 70 years ago, and at 100 years old, he's still carrying a battered briefcase to the exact same desk every morning. So I have to ask, is the old ox metaphor actually a little sad? Is it a tragic inability to let go of the only thing he knows how to do? Or are we, in our modern obsession with retiring early, completely misunderstanding what work actually means to someone like him?
If we view his life through the lens of modern transactional labor, we're absolutely misunderstanding him.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Let's break down that Taiwanese old ox metaphor, because it's vital. To a modern urban ear, being called an old ox might sound like being called a beast of burden, a dumb animal yoked to a plow until it drops dead.
Yeah, it sounds a little harsh.
But in Taiwan's historical and cultural context, which was deeply agrarian before the economic miracle of the late 20th century, the water buffalo, or the ox, is a symbol of supreme reverent respect.
So it's not about being exploited, it's about being foundational.
Precisely. The ox symbolizes deep resilience, a grounded connection to reality, and the life-giving cultivation of the land.
Wow.
The ox turns the hard soil so that crops can grow. It creates the foundation for the entire community to survive and thrive. In this metaphor, the land that he is cultivating is the entire Taiwanese economy.
Oh, I see.
He is the foundational force that allows the ultra-modern semiconductor and electric vehicle sectors to flourish. He provides the raw material for the future.
So it's a title of honor. The ox isn't trapped by the plow. The ox is the engine of life.
And regarding the modern FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. That philosophy views work strictly as a transactional exchange. I give you my time and you give me money.
Right.
The work itself is viewed as a negative, a tax on your time. Once I have enough money, I stop paying the tax. But for a mind like his, work hasn't been a transactional exchange for decades. He doesn't need the money.
So what is the work to him, if not a paycheck?
It is his cognitive playground. It is his primary social anchor. It is the mechanism through which he actively engages with the future of humanity.
The future of humanity.
Yeah. When he's in that office, he is directly involved with the absolute cutting edge of human progress, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductor materials. If he were to retire to a beach at age 65, what happens to that brilliant, highly calibrated, systems-oriented mind?
The engine would seize up without a complex problem to solve. All that cognitive RAM we talked about would just go to waste.
Retirement, for a mind that operates at his level, wouldn't be a reward, it'd be an exile.
An exile. That's a powerful way to frame it.
It would mean stepping out of the stream of progress and becoming a spectator to the future rather than a participant.
Right.
The joy that observers see in him isn't the joy of making another dollar. It is the deep, fulfilling joy of relevance.
Right.
It is the joy of solving complex puzzles and of knowing that your daily actions, even at 100 years old, are still actively shaping the world.
The joy of relevance. That completely flips the script on what a successful life looks like. We think of retirement as freedom, but for him, freedom is the ability to keep building, to keep learning, to keep being the Edison of his field.
Yes.
It makes you realize that if your work is merely a burden, of course you want to escape it. But if your work is your craft, your art, your engagement with the world, you protect it at all costs.
It challenges us to evaluate what we are actually retiring from and what we intend to retire to.
Okay, let's pull all of these threads together. We've covered an immense amount of ground today. We set out to unpack the blueprint of extreme longevity and relevance based on this fascinating profile from Wealth magazine.
And the architecture of his life reveals a highly reproducible mindset, even if we don't run a petrochemical empire.
Right. To synthesize what we've discovered, the secret to this kind of extreme longevity and corporate evolution isn't a magic pill. There's no secret fountain of youth hidden in his morning routine. It is fundamentally an engineering mindset applied ruthlessly and consistently to every single facet of life. We saw it in how he vertically integrated a massive legacy business, possessing the dual-track mind required to pivot from basic plastics to the microscopic tolerances of advanced semiconductor materials.
A fully integrated system of living.
We saw it in how he automated his physical environment, eating the simple steamed bun and using the 50-year-old desk to eliminate decision fatigue and preserve his mental bandwidth.
That's smart.
We saw it in his incredible data-driven ego management, looking at the reality of his 99-year-old body and scientifically right-sizing his daily step count to 5,000 rather than stubbornly chasing 10,000.
And we saw how he uses modern AI not to panic search symptoms, but as a systems-level diagnostic tool to actively debug his own health, maintaining enough intellectual rigor to literally stump hospital directors.
And finally, we saw it in the profound intellectual humility required to read 4 hours a day, studying the time management and human engineering of his peers like Morris Chang, proving that the desire to learn just doesn't have an expiration date.
He engineered a life where physical discipline, cognitive input, and professional purpose all reinforce each other in a continuous, lifelong feedback loop.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, and it comes back to why we study lives like this in the first place.
Yeah.
We spend so much of our time and our resources in modern society thinking about how to extend our lifespan. We obsess over diets, supplements, and biohacks just to squeeze a few more years onto the clock. But this incredible story challenges us to look at a completely different metric.
It challenges us to think about extending our curiosity span.
Curiosity span.
A long life without curiosity is merely endurance, is just running out the clock. But a long life driven by the relentless need to know, to learn, and to solve that is true vitality.
Extending your curiosity span. I love that. So here is my final question directly to you, listening right now. If you knew you were going to live to be 100 years old, and you knew you were going to wake up and go to the office on your 100th birthday, what kind of work, and more importantly, what kind of mindset would make you actually excited to wake up at 5 a.m. that morning?
That's the real question.
It is a question that requires a lot of introspection, but it might just be the key to staying relevant for a century. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into an extraordinary life. Take a walk today. Maybe you don't need to hit 5,000 steps, but get out there, clear your mind, get the blood flowing to your brain, and most importantly, stay curious. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.